Hi Scorpio, welcome to your February 2020 Astro Update and Tarot reading. It's Raina here. Yes, I'm combining the two just to mix things up a little bit. I typically have separate readings for the Tarot and Astrology. When I first started, I did combine them, but I found that when you when you combine them, you can never really just kind of like explore it on its own. You always have to like remember, oh yeah, I gotta talk about these transits while I'm laying out the cards and all that. And it's so funny because as I'm describing this, it sounds like a hassle, but I'm gonna go through with it just because I've already done it with some of the other signs. And one of the neat things about it is that it can show you synchronicity. If I talk about certain transits, that they show up in the cards. Okay, so as I shuffle the cards, let me just say the sun is in Aquarius until the 18th of the month. Aquarius is a fixed sign like you, and Aquarius is your fourth house of home and family. So you may notice that domestic issues are front and center, that you're focusing on them for some reason. Now this could involve also your mother, could involve real estate matters in some way. And on the 3rd, Mercury goes into Pisces. So Mercury has been in this fourth house. You may have been contacting family, or perhaps you're negotiating something with real estate and closing on a house or what have you. And Mercury then goes into Pisces, which is the 5th house, and that's more fun. You know, the 4th house can also be about your childhood, and not to say that somebody's childhood can't be fun, but sometimes it can be a little bit intense, dealing with the past, and especially if somebody's going through something with their mother, and they're kind of putting two and two together about certain things that have been true that they didn't really pay attention to. Like if you have some development with her, and then you think, wow, all this time, you know, it's always been this way. Like, for instance, like if it's a challenging situation. So Mercury in the 5th is more fun. You know, it's a trine aspect. You're water and Pisces is water, and it's the love house, and it's also creativity. So you may be talking to somebody, as they say, that somebody new, but this is the house where there's going to be a Mercury retrograde on the 16th of February, and it will go into March, and it will eventually go back into your 4th house, this Mercury retrograde. But Mercury retrograde can bring somebody back from your past, maybe an old lover. And if you're somebody who is like is talking to somebody new, you may be like, gosh, right when I'm starting to get on with my life, this person who may have even been the one who broke up with you is suddenly sniffing around again. And you might be like, okay, what, you know, maybe you were pining away for this person for a long time, being a Scorpio and holding on to things a long time, but you finally moved on, and then they come back. Another thing too is, since Mercury is going to dip back into Aquarius, it's going to go back into the 4th house, this may have something to do with having children, because the 5th house can be conceiving children. So your mind might be, you know, researching how do you do it, but because you've had this 4th house activity, and this is, remember, this is a retrograde, so you might be like really kind of ruminating over it. You might be thinking, well, this was my childhood. I'm not sure that I feel comfortable having a child, and kind of weighing the pros and cons. So now I'm going to lay out the cards and see what comes up. If I get the Empress, I'm going to just fall out here. Wow. I've been getting like a lot of major arcana cards for some signs, which can mean like, a lot of things happening within that period of time. So the heart of the matter is the Hierophant, and this is a card connected to Taurus, which is your opposite sign. The Hierophant can be about spiritual ideas or philosophical ideas, and that means, or just, religion. That can mean, looking at your life from a more philosophical point of view instead of just being on automatic and just going through that daily grind, but really saying, what am I here for, and really thinking about that. In relationships, this can be marriage and conforming to tradition, respecting tradition. Maybe you're with somebody who, or you just left somebody, because we have this in the past position, who you wanted to marry you and they wanted to continue to live with you, or maybe you never even got to the stage of moving in together, but that was the deal breaker. They did not want to get married, and that was important to you. And in the past position, we have the Eight of Cups. Sometimes I wonder if this is Scorpio. I'm gonna have to look this up if I can never remember to, but it is, you are Cups, but the 8, you rule the 8th house, walking away from what doesn't serve you, maybe being on a spiritual journey. So for sure, this could be even like connected to your current occupation or career, where there's something about you right now where you feel this sense of awakening. Oh, you know what? Hello. Your 9th house. This is the weird thing. I got so mad when I was learning what each card meant. The Hierophant to me totally seemed like it went along with Sagittarius, because it's also about universities. It's everything that we would associate with the 9th house. God, philosophy, things like that. Maybe not marriage, but some of the other things. But in any case, I just had this feeling of like looking at life from a deeper perspective, and I thought about what your 9th house is, and that would be Cancer. And the North Node is transing in Cancer, and there are the eclipses, connected to that, in Cancer and Capricorn. And so that may certainly be something that has been influencing you in the past year plus, having this type of influence in that 9th house, and making you much more philosophical than you normally are. Although, Scorpios are very naturally spiritual, because you're very intuitive, being a water sign. So in any case, it's possible that this was like, if this is a relationship thing, that you fought over religion. Maybe that was the deal breaker too. That you believe in God, that person's an atheist. You're a Christian, they're a Buddhist, and they think you're too conservative, you think they're too far out. Who knows? Although I don't know many. It's funny to me when Christians are into astrology, because it's supposed to be something that you're not supposed to be into, even though the 3 wise men, I think, were astrologers. So, but the Bible is kind of an interesting book, to say the least. If you doubt me, read Leviticus, and never wear cotton poly blends, because that's against biblical rules in Leviticus. Just wear pure fabric, not mixed fabrics. And I'm not mocking the Bible, but the truth is that whenever you have dogma, and that could be like the Hierophant too, it's like this, dictative, that it's like brought down. It's like we may not agree with everything, and sometimes people cherry pick and they say, well, not the Old Testament. That's the Old Testament. I'm into the New Testament. But they still like the Ten Commandments in the Old Testament. And certain things, from the Old Testament. But the thing is, it's like, sometimes I hear people talking, and it doesn't have to be Christianity per se, but it could be some other religion, but it's almost legalistic, like they're citing chapter and verse about something. Instead of what is true for me, not like what is relative truth, but truth can be dependent on circumstances. Saying things are black and white really is not that accurate. Not all situations are the same, and so with the Hierophant, there could be the sense that you're breaking free from this conformity or this conditioning that you were given, because it doesn't, like the Eight of Cups, it doesn't really resonate with you emotionally anymore or spiritually. And maybe this is a Taurus person that you're leaving. But if it's a marriage question, you might feel like marriage is wrong, that your religion has dictated that God hates divorce. Now, do you think that if somebody's getting beaten up by their spouse, that God would hate them to leave that person? So, to me, that's nonsense, because you can't say something across the board. There are different circumstances where sometimes it may be exactly what you have to do. But taking things literally and not applying it to the situation doesn't seem like it's a good idea. So you might be kind of wrestling with those kinds of issues and wanting to honor what you know to be true, but perhaps feeling in your heart that there's kind of that empty feeling. The higher message is the Nine of Cups, and to me this is saying that life is supposed to be joyful. I'm doing a series right now, they're actually audios, on the different Jupiter signs. I haven't recorded all of them yet, but it's been a lot of fun. It's like, where your natal Jupiter is in. And this card is connected to Jupiter, by the way. I think it would be like Jupiter and Pisces, possibly. But anyway, this is a card of, what is it that they call it? Oh my God, why can't I think straight? Wish fulfillment, okay? But this is a spiritual position. So what would that mean? Well, I would say that you have the right you have the right to be happy. And it's next to the Hierophant. And it's like God is love. God wants us to be living in a state of bliss. And for some people, that will feel very weird, because they may believe and may have been taught that you have to suffer in order to deserve good things in life. Whether you have to suffer working a job you don't like, working a certain amount of hours and just slaving away, and that sense of resistance, and then you earn your weekends, or you earn the money to buy things. And that kind of like, I was going to say cognitive dissonance, but that's not probably the right term, but that kind of like situation creates discordant conditions where you don't really like what you do, but you feel like that's normal and that's how life is. And that, it's like work hard, play hard. And yet it's not supposed to be, I don't think it's supposed to be hard. I don't think life is supposed to be hard. So, but that's just me. I'm injecting my opinions here, but I'm trying to interpret this. Where the Nine of Cups is about just accepting abundance, but this is even like emotional well-being, and believing that that's your birthright. What crosses you is the Judgment card, and this can be a card of going against your better judgment. Also, this is a card, you see the fire, this is like, I think it's connected to Pluto if I'm not mistaken, so it is a card of rebirth, and yet it's in the challenge position. So perhaps you're in the process of making a big change in your life, but you haven't gotten there yet, because something may, guess what is in the middle there? The Hierophant. Whether that's a person in your life, or whether that is a belief that you have that you just can't get out of your mind. You can't, deprogram yourself, for instance. This is just, I think this is part of transformation, is letting go of old beliefs and having new ones take their place. And maybe in the beginning you don't believe those things, and then gradually you start to see how they build upon themselves. And the opposite is true. So for instance, if you are told when you're growing up that it's important that money doesn't grow on trees, and you have to, if the parents grew up and they didn't have much money and they have a lot of trauma around material resources, they can give you the message that you have, the most important thing is to keep your job and not to make waves, or if you're married, that God hates divorce and things like that. And you may be afraid to question those beliefs, because then that means that if you go against the grain, people may be upset with you. Now, usually Scorpios don't really care too much about other people being, disapproving of you. I think that's one of the things I like about Scorpio, but you're right next to Libra, so you may have inner planets. Your moon can be in Libra as well, or maybe Cancer or something else that feels the need, Pisces, the need for acceptance. But your inner planets like Mercury, Venus, or Mars can be in Libra. And you may feel like it's important to be like approved of, or even the rising sign can set a person up for that need of people pleasing and things like that. And you might be threatened at the prospect of, like, if you really have been, in a church, for instance, being shunned from the church, which means really being rejected from it. And it's human nature to want that feeling of belonging to something. And then when there's that mixture of God, it can feel that much more threatening to your sense of belonging. But you have to realize that if you're looking to have a new life and be reborn and to transform, it comes, I was going to say it comes with a price, but that makes it sound too negative. It just means that you have to risk some of these things. And remember too, that people who disapprove may be doing so because secretly they have a hard time making those, being kind of independent when it comes to these things themselves. So they want to make it like you're the bad guy, when really they might envy you for having the guts to improve your life and not just staying put. What's coming in, or the advice, is the Hangman. This can be like a period of non-action. One thing I would say as advice is to surrender. Surrender doesn't mean give up. Surrender means that you let go of resistance, that you aren't trying to make something happen. So one thing that is always comforting to me, and I just want to pass along to you, whenever you feel like there's something about your life that needs major overhaul, and with the Eight of Cups, you may even feel like spiritually you're on this quest, this spiritual quest, and you maybe even want to travel and to go, and it has a spiritual component to it. And then you think to yourself, but how can I make it happen? I don't have the money for it, or I don't really know if my partner would approve of me going off to India all of a sudden. How can I do this? When I realize is that I don't have to solve all my problems in one night or in one day. I said, well, you know what? I don't need to deal with this right now. The only thing I need to deal with is the fact that I'm feeling that change is underfoot and that I need to start making a shift. And I'm going to let go of the need to worry about this and control. I think worry can be a form of control, where you think if you obsess about something long enough that it's going to actually make a change in your life. And the other thing about the Hangman, it's let go and let God. It's funny because I might, label this, I might title this Let Go and Let God, because the Hierophant is representing God too. And that means for everything, of just saying, I know that things are changing and I'm a little bit apprehensive, but I'm going to let Jesus take the wheel, because I don't, I can't control what happens. I mean, this is beyond my control, and I'm okay with that. I have faith that it's going to turn out for the best. The outcome is the Eight of Pentacles. This is a card of maybe training for something, perfecting your craft. This is also a good money card. It's 8 is a number of worldly power, and with the Pentacles being about money, this can be attracting that kind of thing. But as I stated, I mean, if this is like a job situation that you don't have the heart for anymore, Scorpio, you may be taking the plunge in some kind of a training, and perhaps it's in a totally different area, and that's why it feels a little bit unusual for you, or like you're a little bit, concerned about whether it's going to turn out all right. But I think that it's a really great card because you've got like a goal in mind, and then anything, I mean, regardless of whatever the Hierophant means to you, I get the feeling though for some Scorpios this does have a component with your spiritual life, but the Eight of Pentacles is more like grounded. So it may be that you're doing practices that are going to enable you, and they might even be like maybe you're wanting to teach yoga or something like that, and you are training for it, and you're gaining that knowledge so that you can teach others and really enhance your own spiritual progress while you're doing that. So that's a great way to end this tarot reading, and I'm just going to say a few more things about your astrology. Venus is going into Aries on the 7th of the month, and this is your 6th house. So there could be a raise if you are currently employed. Venus can bring money. This can also be like meeting a potential love partner in the office place. A full moon is occurring 2 days later in Leo on the 9th, 20 degrees of Leo. This is your 10th house of career. So right then and there, that can be a promotion. So if I see those two together and they're like 2 days apart, Venus in the 6th and the full moon in the 10th, that could be a promotion and more money. And Mars goes into Capricorn on the 16th, and so until for half of the month, Mars is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is your 2nd house of earned income. So you may already have been kind of really hustling, Scorpio, and maybe this has something to do with why you may have gotten some sort of promotion and raise, because you were really ambitious about wanting more money. Desire. Mars is about desire. And then Mars goes into your 3rd house. And so I mentioned before that you have, at the beginning I was talking about the 4th house with the mother. Well, the 3rd house can be your siblings. And this can be a bit of a conflict. With Mars, there can be some sort of conflict between you and them. 3rd house can be your cousins. It can be your aunt and uncle. And maybe there's some kind of, I'm wondering if there's some kind of like inheritance issue even, and that you're dealing with, and that may feel like you're not agreeing with your siblings. But Mars in the 3rd can simply mean that you are, like, if you're like trying to close on a house, you may be like walking around the neighborhood in those areas, the local area, to see if you like, kind of like the area itself, if you feel comfortable in the neighborhood and things like that, because the 3rd house can be the local area. On the same day, the 16th, that's when Mercury goes retrograde in your 5th house. So be on the lookout for an ex-lover to perhaps give you a phone call or an email, text. And then on the 23rd, there's a new moon in this 5th house of romance. As I said, Mercury is there, and even before it goes retrograde, you may be talking to a new person. So you may have two things going on at once with your love life. The 5th house can also be about something creative, like a creative project. Maybe you're rethinking one of your pieces, one of your novels, and maybe revising it, or who knows, something along those lines. Okay, Scorpio, wow, this is very extensive to combine these things. So I hope that you enjoy this, and I hope you have a great month. Take care. Bye.